Hey everyone, I'm back with another update. In this episode, I'll cover immigration related news, anti ICE activity, and rampant fraud. Of course, I'll end with the noteworthy tidbits. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem confirmed 2.6 million illegal aliens have now left the United States under the Trump administration, with 650,000 of those being forcibly removed and the rest self deporting. And the state of California lost $160 million in federal funding because they refused to revoke illegal alien CDLs. On Thursday, a U.S. Customs and Border Protection agent shot and wounded two Tren de Aragua gang members during a targeted vehicle stop in Portland, Oregon. Those shot include a man who entered the United States illegally in 2022 with a final deportation order of removal and open DUI case in Washington County, and a woman who entered the United States illegally in 2023. The woman is alleged to have played an active role in a Tren de Aragua-linked prostitution ring and was involved in a prior shooting in Portland. According to DHS, the stop targeted the woman, who was the passenger, due to her suspected gang ties. When agents identified themselves, the man allegedly weaponized the vehicle by attempting to run over the agents, prompting the agent to fire in self-defense. No agents were injured, and the two illegals fled initially but were later found with gunshot wounds and treated at a hospital. They're in stable condition and remain in federal custody, and the FBI is investigating the incident as an assault on federal officers. This event sparked protests in Portland on Friday, and there were protests in other cities as well, including New York City and Minneapolis. The protests in Minneapolis ramped up after the death of Renee Good, the woman who weaponized her vehicle against federal agents after stalking and harassing them. On the 8th, the city saw a mix of continued ICE enforcement operations and rapidly escalating anti-ICE protests and vigils. The atmosphere was tense, with significant community outrage fueling demonstrations that occasionally turned confrontational. ICE continued large-scale operations in the Twin Cities area, described by federal officials as part of the largest ever immigration crackdown, and DHS highlighted arrests from the previous day and amplified continuation of the worst criminal non-citizens, including rapists, pedophiles, and drug traffickers in Minneapolis. The agency defended its actions amid criticism, stating it would not be deterred by violence or rioters. More federal agents were deployed to Minnesota, and new rules limited congressional access to ICE facilities, requiring 7 days advance notice, heightening local accusations of opacity and overreach. Reports noted ICE agents swarming immigrant-heavy neighborhoods, conducting door-to-door checks at businesses, vehicle stops, and extending into suburbs. Community groups tracked hundreds of ICE vehicles with hotlines overwhelmed by sighting reports and requests for aid. Hundreds gathered near the scene of Renee Good's death to tend to a growing makeshift memorial with flowers, candles, crosses, and signs. Messages opposing ICE were painted in the snow, and people mourned Good as a compassionate community member. Protesters marched to and gathered outside the Bishop Henry Whipple Federal Building, which houses ICE-related offices. Crowds clashed with federal agents in riot gear, including brief confrontations, federal agents tackling and detaining individuals, the use of pepper spray and tear gas, and attempts to block vehicles. At least 11 protesters were arrested during Thursday's actions per local reports, with crowds in the hundreds to low thousands at peak moments. Demonstrations included chants like "Abolish ICE," "ICE out of Minnesota," "No justice, no peace," and calls for accountability. Minneapolis public schools canceled classes January 8th and 9th out of an abundance of caution due to safety concerns from ongoing activity and protests. Community monitoring networks remained active, patrolling and documenting ICE movements. Mayor Jacob Frey reiterated his demand for ICE to get the F out of Minneapolis, calling the federal narrative bullshit and accusing authorities of hiding facts. He urged peaceful protest while expressing deep sorrow for Good's family. Governor Tim Walz prepared the National Guard, though not yet deployed, and emphasized unity and calm. The day's events remained mostly contained compared to potential full-scale unrest, but served as a flashpoint, with protests peaceful in morning but tense in confrontations, setting the stage for larger actions on January 9th and 10th. I do want to repeat something that Jesse Waters said, calling out the Democrats' hypocrisy regarding the violent parts of this. A couple days from the January 6th anniversary, candles and songs, they said you can't attack federal law enforcement and agents. Every day in Minneapolis looks like J6. They're running cars at them, spitting at them, assaulting them, kicking them, chasing them. They're doing it all over the country, every day, and the media says nothing about it. On to the Minnesota Somali fraud scheme mess. Sworn testimony from officials provided enough evidence for Representative Anna Paulina Luna to refer Governor Tim Walz and Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison to the Department of Justice for criminal charges of being knowingly complicit in the Somali fraud scandal. DHS agents were spotted going door to door investigating alleged fraud, and Nick Shirley revealed that he and his mother need 24/7 security because leftists are targeting him so much for bringing attention to the fraud. Representative Tim Burchett confirmed our taxpayer funds went from Minnesota to Somalia and the terror organization Al-Shabaab, but then ended up in Iran, so we're funding our own enemies. The federal government is also investigating hundreds of millions of Somali dollars leaving through the Minneapolis airport, with claims that Somali couriers were coming to the airport almost daily with $1.6 million in cash inside luggage. Republicans removed a spending provision placed by Somali Representative Ilhan Omar that would have sent $1 million to a fraudulent clinic in Minnesota, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced several investigations into 4 money service businesses caught wiring money to the Middle East and Somalia. Bessent is now moving to ban anyone that receives government assistance from wiring money out of the country. Fraud investigations are coming to other states as well, especially blue states, with Ohio being another state with prominent fraud. It was found that a Somali Education and Resource Center in Ohio received $14 million in taxpayer funds, but the place is completely abandoned and smells like weed. Ohio attorney Mahik Cook, John Rocker, and others have been going door to door to investigate these fraudulent businesses, and their findings have been similar to those of Nick Shirley's in Minnesota. In response to this rampant fraud problem, the Trump administration created a new nationwide Assistant Attorney General position dedicated to prosecuting fraud, and this person's efforts will start and focus primarily in Minnesota. This new Assistant Attorney General will be part of the new Department of Justice Division for National Fraud Enforcement, will run out of the White House, and will have full constitutional authority. Now it's time for the Noteworthy Tidbits, which are brought to you today by Big Fork Brands. Let me tell you about them quick. Sometimes I get on a roll cleaning or gardening, and I need a boost but don't have time for a meal. Big Fork Brand's pork jerky is the perfect choice to keep my momentum, offering high-protein snacks for on-the-go energy boosts. Not only do they offer pork jerky, but they also make pork sticks, bacon sausage, bacon hot dogs, and burger and hot dog sauces. Products come in a variety of delicious flavors, including Thai green curry and maple and brown sugar for the meat options, and gangster and Chicago fire for the sauces. I personally think the original flavor of the pork jerky hits just right after tackling a big chore. It's a little salty and very flavorful. My discount code gives you 20% off your entire order, and it's currently the best deal available. Just visit bigforkbrands.com and enter in my promo code JADE, that's JADE, at checkout. All right, let's get back to the tidbits. The U.S. House passed a bill to give billions of dollars to big insurance companies through Obamacare, extending the subsidies for 3 years. The U.S. Senate voted to advance the War Powers Resolution, reining in President Trump's actions on Venezuela, with several Republicans joining the Democrats. However, the White House confirmed this would be vetoed. The food pyramid has been basically flipped, so a high cereal and bread diet is no longer recommended, which should have happened a long time ago, but it's nice that time has finally arrived. The Trump administration is doubling the amount of healthy food stores must have in stock if they accept SNAP as a form of payment. President Trump announced the purchase of $200 billion in mortgage bonds to drive down mortgage rates. Judge James Boasberg is facing impeachment and removal as he is accused of abusing his role as chief judge. Senator Eric Schmidt outlined 5 ways in which he abused his role and said that Boasberg has made it clear time and time again that he, instead of wearing that black robe, wears a blue jersey. President Trump announced there will be U.S. military land strikes against cartels, hinting at Mexico. After Representative Luna's motion passed unanimously, communist mega-donor Neville Singham is facing a subpoena from the House as he is accused of funding violent riots. Secretary Bessent confirmed the U.S. withdrew from the United Nations-affiliated Green Climate Fund because the GCF goals run contrary to the fact that affordable, reliable energy is fundamental to economic growth and poverty reduction. According to the Associated Press, Denmark and Greenland envoys met with President Trump at the White House, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio will be meeting with them next week. The U.S. House failed to override President Trump's veto of a bill that would have given special treatment to the Miccosukee tribe in Florida, which opposes enforcement of immigration law. President Trump confirmed he will strike Iran if the regime shoots protesters, explaining, "The enthusiasm to overturn that regime is incredible, and what they've done is, in the past, they start shooting the hell out of protesters. And I said, if they do that, we're going to hit them very hard. So far, for the most part, they haven't." That's all I have for today. I'll be back with another update soon. Until then, please like, subscribe, and share this podcast, and follow me on Instagram and X at Shades of Jade Pod. Thank you for listening and have a great day.